we're doing or Zoom call with Rick. We did one a couple days ago, and I think it was very helpful to the membership. And so we decided to do a lot. We decided to do another one because there were so many people that wanted to do it. So we will be doing a number of these calls over the next few weeks. Please let me know what kind of information you guys need from me. We had a call yesterday with Representative Anna Williams. That was very, very informative just to know what was going on at the state level. They're going to do a special session early next week and figure out what's going on at the state level. And then she said she'd call me back and we could do another call to get updates on what was actually voted and decided on. So keep looking for that. I'm trying to set up a call with Senator Merkley's office to try to have some help to walk through this CARE Act. So if you have questions on the CARE Act, they would be probably a good office to ask questions to. So I'm trying to set that up. And then next Wednesday, we already have a call set up with MCED, Mid-Columbia Development District, and the SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center that's in the Dalles. And they are going to talk about the loans that they have available. And questions for this exact questions that Michael and Chris were just asking about. They can help with that, but that's not till Wednesday at noon. So sign up for that if you're interested. And just other stuff coming out, and let me know what you need and who you want to talk to, and I'll set it up for you. Okay, Rick, that was it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So now I just want to do my little disclaimer. So first I want to thank Kate and the Hood River Chamber for putting this together. Please understand that during this presentation, I'm going to be sharing quite a bit of editorial opinion, and this is completely my editorial opinion and does not reflect the editorial opinion of the Chamber of Commerce or any of the members who sponsored and helped bring this together. Also, I see quite a few people in here that remember me from the Small Business Development Center. I am not speaking as a small business development. I no longer work there, so I'm not representing the Small Business Development Center, the SBA. The information I'm sharing comes from best practices that I've used with my own businesses during disasters. I happen to own a business when September 11th happened. I've experienced earthquakes. I've experienced a SARS epidemic. My store's been struck by lightning. A car went through my storefront. So I have experience dealing with things, and I learned from a ton of valuable mentors. So that's what we're going to be sharing today. So the first thing I'd like to say is that we know about resiliency in the Columbia Gorge. We had the Eagle Creek fires. We've had some snowstorms and ice storms that have closed down 84. You know, I'm not trying to say that this isn't something that's uncharted territory that we've never experienced before. Obviously, we've never experienced anything of this magnitude in the gorge before, but we got through previous crises and we got through fairly well and fairly unscathed. Unfortunately, in any crisis, some businesses get hurt more than others. But you know, this is the time where you really need to focus working on your business. And this is where some of the conversation we had just before this call went on is, you know, people start talking about what's out there. Right now, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be focusing so much on macroeconomics and what's out there and what's happening to the economy. Now's the time to really look at what's happening to your particular business. Be thoughtful and assess your particular business situation. So when people talk about what to ask for, you ask for what you need. And you really want to start going into your particular financial statements and look at your history and say, how are the next 2 or 3 months of shutdown, or in some cases slowdown, going to apply to your particular business? So what you want to do is think about your particular profit and loss statement, and then you want to talk about your particular action plan, not the action plan of what the government's going to offer you, the action plan of what you can do to minimize the hurt of this slowdown on your particular business. And I will say those who wait and don't take action because they think something's going to come are often the businesses that don't survive things like that. That's just my personal experience and my personal opinion. You know, first, I'm not sure if anybody was on the first call. This is where, after getting some feedback from the first call and some follow-up with some of the members, I've had a couple people tell me, well, I'm going to wait for the CARE Act and see what shakes out with that. I'm sorry, there's things you can be doing right now that I recommend you start taking action and doing, just in case things don't come out as planned with the CARE Act. So it starts with a budget process. And again, the best way you can focus on the microeconomics of what's happening to your business is to really look at your revenue history and what you think is going to happen the next 3 months. So I'm not sure if you've done this yet, but certainly if this was my business, I'd be looking at what are my sales going to slow down and what bills do I still have to pay during this. And don't get into the weeds with details. Stay high altitude and focus on what you control most. I will say for most small businesses, it's usually going to be your personnel costs. It's going to be your advertising budget, a little bit of production expenses, and a little bit with occupancy expenses. So the first thing you should be doing is a quick assessment. And the example I'll use is, so when I owned my bagel stores, let's say I was doing $50,000 a month. And through this slowdown, I could still do some wholesale and takeout only, and my sales go down to $20,000 a month. Well, right there, I've lost $30,000 of revenue. But actually, I don't lose totally $30,000 of revenue, because on that $50,000 of sales, I had, you know, the flour and the ingredients I needed for those bagels. And let's say that cost 30% of my sales. Well, if my sales drop to 20,000, on that 30,000, I'm only losing 21,000. That's the type of conversation you need to be having with your business mentors right now and your partners, and saying, okay, how's this affect us? And then you have to look at your expenses. Well, obviously, if I look at my fixed expenses, I might be able to reduce my payroll a little bit. I might be able to reduce my advertising budget a little bit. I might be able to talk to my landlord and work out deals with my landlord and defer rent right now. And I might find that the hurt is only, instead of thinking $30,000 a month a hurt, maybe my hurt's only $10,000. And then I'm coming up with, how long is this going to last? And how do I come up with the best strategy to make up? You know, let's say, you know, it was $10,000 a month. I'm now thinking, what's the best way to come up with $30,000 to get through this and keep my doors open? And the second part of this budget process is what I call prioritization. It's very important for you to look at your expenses from a different viewpoint and say, what are things that I must pay? What are things that I need to pay? And what are things that I like to pay? And what I mean by that, and this is going to be a tough one for some of you listening, a must pay means that it's going to shut off your business if you don't pay it. So the example I used, even though, and I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with the utility companies, but it's just easy for me to make this example. If I don't pay my electric bill, they could shut off my power tomorrow. I can't run my business without power. That's a must pay. So if the electric company sends you a notice and says, if you don't pay the bill, we're going to shut you down, that's a must pay. You got to pay it or you're going to be closed tomorrow. A need to pay would be something like what we're actually experiencing now. If you don't pay your electric bill this month, you know, most electric companies are saying we're not shutting off anyone's power if you can't pay the electric bill, but if you don't pay it 6 months from now, well, that's a need to pay. You've bought yourself some time, but you can't continue indefinitely without paying that. Same thing goes with some of your vendors. It's like, obviously to make bagels, I need flour. And if my flour distributor says you need to pay me or I'm not delivering your flour, I can't make bagels and I can't do any business. But if I say, hey, give me 30-day terms, and they give me 30-day terms, as long as I pay every 30 days, then that's a need to pay. A like to pay is, You don't pay it, nothing happens. I mean, yeah, your credit might get hurt. Yeah, there might be some bad will, but nobody could do anything about it. And I'm sure some of you have bills like that where, yeah, you would like to pay it. I don't want to call out one particular type of thing and give you some ideas right here, but basically a like to pay is something, if you don't pay it, your business can continue on and there will be no hurt to that. The second part of the process is to budget your cash flow. And again, I gave you some examples on the previous slide. Right now, if you have any receivables out there and there's a way to collect them, you certainly want to collect what you can. I will say that some businesses are in the unfortunate situation where people owe them money, and the people that owe them money are experiencing the hurt right now. And if you're in that position, there's only so much you can do about it. But if you do have abilities to at least get some of it, now's the time to think about what terms you can do to help out, especially if you have a customer that does have some resources. The other thing is to look at your inventory levels and see what inventory you can lower and get rid of if possible. With accounts payable, if anything has 30-day terms, you want to see if you can turn it into 60-day terms. Reach out to your vendors that you owe money to and see if they have the ability to help you through this. One of the things that I talked about in the last class that I still think is going to be an ongoing thing is, talk to your landlords. It's definitely something I did with my bagel store when September 11th happened. I talked to my landlord and I said, look, I want 3 months to get through this. I had just opened up my business. And I said, defer my rent for 3 months. And then, we'll take that. I had $2,500 a month. We'll take that $7,500. We'll divide it by 10 and I'll pay it over the next 10 months and break that out. And a lot of times just having that conversation, it's like, I can't make commitments and things like that. But I will say this, again, talking about what's out there to help you, the best thing that's out there is your relationships with the people you do business with and making as much negotiation as you can. Certainly, if you have low interest credit cards right now or credit lines, consider using them. If you can defer payments on loan balances, consider calling your banker. If you have a good payment history, there's a ton of banks out there right now that might not be able to give you a new influx of immediate cash, but they can defer your payments and take the interest and move it into the future balance moving forward. That's what financing is for. But remember that must, need, and like. When you're negotiating, with one of these partners and you're asking for something, definitely know the situation they're in. And, on your end, when I talked about the receivables, this is the point where you need to be very likable to the people that owe you money. So hopefully they'll be paying you money and not listening to my little conversation here. Revenue opportunities. What I do like to say is a lot of businesses are too quick to give up on what they can be selling during this. I will say that locally, what I've been seeing, I'm seeing a ton of ingenuity. A couple people that are on this call, what they've been doing to maintain sales is just out of this world. It's really inspiring to see how people are reacting to this. Now is the time to be selling gift certificates for the future when you're open. Now is the time to be doing deliveries if there's an option for you to do deliveries. Just remember, this whole thing ends quicker if we reduce contact and maintain the best hygienic practices. I want you to stay in business any way possible, but I am not by any means saying, break the rules and, open up your doors for business. We do need to maintain those safe distances and the good hygiene. The other thing I like to add about this is, again, this too shall pass. I wish I could tell you if this is going to end 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4, 6, whatever it is, but you want to position your business once it looks like this is going to end, that your sales can go up immediately. You can immediately recover revenue. And there's lots of ways, a lot of things you can be doing right now to come up with strategies to make sure when your doors open again, you're prepared to have the inventory to sell. You're prepared to have the staff to fulfill the orders for those customers. So really keep that in mind. Okay, your financing resources, weathering the storm. So if you notice, nowhere up here do I have that SBA disaster thing. So for those of you that were on the call and heard Chris, and I'm sorry, I forget the other person's name that was talking about the economic injury loan. I do work for another business. We filed our loan application easy. Like the other person that was talking, I watched the application process change from what I was used to doing when I was with SBDC. I started doing the application one day, and then the next day I went on to finish the application. It was slightly changed, so they are still making changes to that. I bring up the point that, you know, and certainly this was years ago, but I went to Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. I helped over 100 businesses fill out applications, and I only had 2 of those businesses get approved. And I mean, think about that. That was a regional disaster in the southeastern United States. This is impacting the whole United States. There's only going to be so much capacity and resources. So I'm just being very blunt. I would not hold my breath for that as the best option. To me, the best options are this. If you have home equity, now is the time to tap into your home equity. Is the perfect type of financing. You know, again, I can't tell you the timeline on this, but I'm hoping it's 2 to 3 months. But even if it's 6 months, I would much rather have a low interest 10 to 15, maybe even a 30-year payback with a home equity loan to get myself through this short-term crisis. That's what you're looking for. Low interest, long-term payback, flexible payback terms. Most home equity loans, you have low interest. The amortization is going to be based on 20, 30 years. And there's no prepayment penalties if you pay off the loan early. It would be a great program. One of the things that the government does have out there still is loan guarantee programs. I would much rather you work with your local lender and have them use that SBA guarantee. This is part of the CARE Act, where they're making it easier for local lenders to use the SBA guarantee. So the banks have less risk in their underwriting. So talk to your local banker and see if you're capable of getting what's called a 7A loan for your particular business. Definitely think there's a higher chance of your business getting a 7A guaranteed loan than an economic injury loan. So next week, McKed's going to be on with the Hood River Chamber. They have two loan programs. There's the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, which is for Hood River, Wasco, Sherman, Klickitat, and Skamania counties. So you could do a McKed loan with them. The Oregon Investment Board is just for the Oregon side. But both of those loan programs during the Eagle Creek fires, I actually was on the Oregon Investment Board loan board. We did 7 very low doc, easy to get loans with flexible payback terms. And it looks like they're going to be doing the same thing. And then the other option I'd like to talk about, there's a lot of people in this community that want to help out. And I'm not going to name names, but one of the other businesses I'm working for, we're an essential business, and we're going to be making hospital gowns. And we had to buy a fairly expensive new piece of equipment to do that. And a person in Hood River stepped up and lent us money to very quick, very flexible payback terms. That's what angels are. There are people that are out there that have financing. that are willing to invest in the community. Yes, you do want to create a win-win scenario where they have the opportunity to get their money back and maybe make a little something out of it. I do like to point out, with all the volatility in the stock market, if I had $1 million to invest right now, I wouldn't be putting it in the stock market. I'd be putting it into a business where I know that person in the community, I trust their integrity. And there are people in this community that you could probably be reaching out to. So if you know someone that has resources, now's a good, and your business needs resources, I would much rather you talk to that person than wait for an SBA loan, is just my opinion on that. And then if you are going to get financing, and some of you who have already started doing the loan application, like my loan application is a really easy process because I keep accurate, up-to-date bookkeeping. As a small business development center counselor, I worked with a lot of clients that didn't have accurate, up-to-date bookkeeping. So now's the time, if you do want to get this financing, you are going to have to show something. And even with the low documentation loans, basically, if you can't prove where your business was at in 2019, like if you haven't done your 2019 tax return, they're going to use your 2000. So the federal government, part of that loan process is you have to give them permission to look at your tax return. They're going to look at your most recent filed tax return and make their decision based on that. So if 2018 happened to be a year where your CPA said, here's all these strategies for you to save money and look like you lost money so you don't have to pay taxes, that is not going to be very helpful in getting your financing. So make sure you have clear documentation of what happened in 2019 that you can present. If you haven't filed your 2019 tax return, you might want to see if you can get that filed really quickly. If you can't get it filed really quickly, get some clean financial statements to add to your loan application. Your loan application should also have a recovery plan. I don't care, I know it's an economic disaster, but lenders want to get paid back their money. They at least want to see you put some thought that you're capable of paying this loan back when the business recovers. Now's the great time to put together a forecast saying, this is what I'm going to lose. This is what I'm going to use the money for to get me back. This is when I'm going to be able to pay that loan back. So you're going to need a clean balance sheet, detailed fixed assets. You're going to need a liability schedule. I will say that is going to impact your lending. If you have 20 other loans that you're behind on, it is going to hurt your chance to get financing. And then every business person should have a personal financial statement, which is basically a personal balance sheet. If you don't know how to do this, this is probably the best thing to use the SBDC for and have them help you with that. You know, this is where I just want to cut off the presentation and open it up for questions. So if you have any questions, please type in the chat. And we'll address them as soon as possible. I just can't point out enough that you want to be strategic during these times. You want to think about how long is this going to hurt me and what can I do about it to minimize the hurt, and then what can I do to recover? So questions, do we have any chats going? Oh.
Yes, something from Lorraine. Do you see that?
There we go. Okay, we borrowed from McKed to get started. They're great. However, the interest rate was considerably higher than most. Now that we've been in business 5 years, do you think interest rates will be more competitive? So first of all, part of the pilot program is, for the pilot program, we had I believe it was 4.5% was our interest rate for the new loans. One of the things McKed also did during this, I can't speak for them and what they're going to do, but we basically deferred interest on our existing loans during the Eagle Creek fires. I can't say that happened for all businesses, but if someone asked for it, there was a deferral. So it certainly doesn't hurt to ask for a deferral of interest or a reduction of your interest rate for a temporary period. The more ideas you give them, the better. You know, I don't want to overstate my importance of being on the Oregon Investment Board, but, you know, unfortunately that board is comprised of a lot of lenders. And when things like this happen, they like to raise interest rates. And you know, I was representing the small business owners, and I would say, no, this is how we can help out more, and hopefully that will happen. And so on the new loans, yes, they will be lower rates definitely during this period. But again, if you do have existing loans and the payment terms are kind of high right now, better chance MCED is going to reduce the interest rate and the terms than any other lender in doing that. But thanks for sharing that, Lorraine. Chris asked about the OIB. Yeah, so again, I think you're looking at probably it's going to be 5% or less on this financing. And again, this is where angels come in, and you look at angels or you look at home equity. One of the good things is right before this crisis happened, home equity loans were at really, really low rates. So there are some banks out there that are lending out at like 3.5 to 4% right now if you have good equity and good credit history with them. In some cases, there's almost no underwriting involved as well.
Hey, Rick, what's
Yeah.
OIB?
Oh, OIB is Oregon Investment Board.
Okay.
Which is part of MCED. MCED manages that. So just a little detail on that. There's two different boards, so decisions are made separately. So like we might, at Oregon Investment Board, we might say 4% interest, and the MCED board might say 5% interest. They operate independently, but the loan underwriting is still managed by MCED, and the process goes through MCED. Okay, forecasted. Okay, great question. Forecasted relief dollars being directed to payroll expenses. Do we have to be strategic about not laying people off in the short term? This question was asked the last time. So everything I've read so far is that, and this is where the details aren't out yet, as long as you maintain 50 to 75% of payroll, you will still get the benefits from that. I will say that this is where I wouldn't wait for the program, and you do what you need to do for your particular business. I'm sorry, so what if you miss out on one particular opportunity, you know, after the fact? It's better that your business survives. And then someone asked what MCED was. I'm sorry when I use acronyms. Mid-Columbia Economic Development District. So it's mcedd.org. You can download the application materials online. Thank you, Janice, for sharing that. You can download the application materials online. It's a great time to go ahead and do that and get your application going and see what's involved in the application. It is a fairly easy application process, and I have a feeling they'll streamline it even more. On the call Wednesday, you'll get more details on that.
Yeah, we've had quite a few people jump on late. We're going to have a call with MCED just like this one next Wednesday at noon. If you're interested in talking with MCED, they will be sharing that time with the Small Business Development Center out of the Dows.
Yeah. So
probably be a pretty informative call. So
I just need to correct that. The Small Business Development Center is also in Hood River.
Do they still have an office here?
Yep.
I thought
they have an office at both colleges.
I just didn't know if it was staffed.
Yeah. It's. I think okay. In fact, I think they just hired another counselor. So okay. I don't know the details. Though.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Okay. Michael. Yes. So MCED serves both Washington and Oregon, Klickitat, Skamania, Wasco, Hood River, and Sherman counties. The Oregon Investment Board, though, is only available on the Oregon side, and the Oregon Investment Board is tied to the Wild and Scenic, so that actually goes into parts of Multnomah County. I think up to the Sandy River is where the Wild and Scenic goes. Yeah. So Jerry made the comment. I agree. You know, there again, it's best to stay local, and they see the hurt that's happening. Yes, the OIB application, they use exactly the same application as MCED. And again, I can't speak highly enough of MCED as a resource partner. You know, granted, they do have limits to the resources. You know, like when I was with OIB at that particular time, we only had about $1 million left in our funding. And I just don't think $1 million is going to go far enough with the amount of businesses impacted in this particular area. I don't know how much is in the loan balance for MCED, you know, but they're very responsive and they're going to do their best to get more resources, I'm sure. So what are the creative ideas I've seen for maintaining income? Number one thing I've been seeing has been the gift card sales and figuring out a way to sell the gift cards online for when people do that. I'm working with a couple of businesses where 50% of their revenue now is people buying gift cards for when they open up again. And that really is going to be helpful. You know, yeah, it might change things like that. I've seen people with the takeout orders and what they're doing with the takeout orders to maintain safe distances. I've watched some retail businesses do some creative online sales and creating quick online storefronts. But I've also watched businesses do like limited service hours where basically, you know, we're not open to the public, but you know, you can call in your order or you can browse at this particular time and, you know, maintain the safe distances where, you know, I mean, kind of the rule of the law right now is 10 people or less. And it's like, as long as you can maintain that 6-foot distance, probably keep control on sanitizing fixtures and keeping control of what people touch and not. There are opportunities for retailers to still do things like that. So Chris again, is there liability potential? That is, boy, probably the toughest question I had yet. And it's actually something I discussed with one of my clients this morning. Yes, so from an insurance perspective, the answer is no. Not that someone's going to sue you, but from a public relations perspective, the comment I made is, and I'm not sure if people heard the news, so I think there's 2 cases that have been confirmed in the Dalles now. And one of them pretty much was at the veterans home, very limited public exposure. The second one, there's very little detail about. I am concerned that once the first case is said that this person, you know, went to Fred Meyer, went shopping at these restaurants and got takeout orders of these restaurants, that might shut down some of the business that's happening with takeout orders right now. It's definitely something that, you know, as a business owner, you really need to prepare for contingencies and what's going to happen in the future. And, you know, again, let's use my bagel store example. Let's say I maintain $20,000 of wholesale sales, and then all of a sudden the governor does a new order and says wholesale deliveries need to stop because, you know, out of the Dalles because there was a case of where we think Rick's Bagel Store was compromised, then I have to bring that down to 0. And I think anybody that's doing limited revenue right now with some contact needs to be careful about that. So Jerry made the comment, it doesn't like hot food, but it doesn't matter if someone gets it from just a transaction of going to the restaurant. You know, I did takeout for dinner last night, and it's kind of funny. You know, everybody's got their own little thing, but I put sanitizer on my little debit card before I gave it to the person. You know, it's like we have to be creative and we have to do the best we can, but we have to be realistic. If cases come out, it will change the dynamics again. We still don't know what's going to happen, you know, next week with this.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Yesterday, some people asked some questions to Representative Anna Williams about that, about, you know, how do you become an essential business, and how do you know, if you still can have your business open or not? And this is kind of outside of restaurants. But what she said is that the plan right now is that you need to be following the things that are coming out about how you distance and follow all the rules and regulations on, sanitizing and washing your hands for your business. They're not policing it, but someone could call the health department and flag you, and then that's when they would come in and shut you down. So if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing and there are no calls being made, then you should be fine. But the problem is that if somebody in your establishment becomes infected, then that's what'll happen.
Okay.
Then they'll come in and probably shut you down. But until then, just continue to follow the rules and regulations and you should be fine. Unless you're in a business that's already been shut down, mandatory.
Yeah. And Jerry just told us to avoid ice cream. I hope there's no ice cream shops in here today. I will say I have had ice cream since this happened, so I hope I survive. And I've had hot food, I've had takeout food, but I mean, everybody has their own way of doing it. I'll just add a little editorial opinion. All we could do is do the best we can. We can't control what others do. We can't. So it's like, think about that. When you have contact with an external customer, you have no idea what hygienic processes they're following. And that's where every group, every organization has to think of the best they can do. And hopefully we'll all collectively be great at doing the best we can do. More questions, and I don't know, Kate, if you want to open up keep your, so if you can unmute, but if you don't have a question, just go ahead and mute yourself, and let's have some dialogue.
Unmute.
I unmuted all, so if you don't want to talk, mute yourself back.
But if you do have a question, please reach out with some questions. I mean, we are here to help you. And in some cases, I will say with the first call, there was a lot of helping each other with the answers.
I had a pretty, I've got a couple of businesses and a couple of landlords, so I think I can maintain anonymity on that. But I've had some really creative conversations with one of my landlords in the last couple of days, because from his perspective, he's not getting any relief at this point, or any hope of any relief at this point, because he's commercial landlords are sort of considered in the higher tier, like corporate bracket, that there's not a lot of relief for right now. So we've been negotiating, and he's thrown out some really cool ideas. He's told me that he's willing to basically fund me to create a lot of swag and a lot of t-shirts and, water bottles or anything like that I could use to either sell to generate income, or just to keep client retention, just to keep good relationships with my customers, because it's worth it for him, for me to keep income coming in. And I'm a little wary about gift cards. It feels like the kind of robbing your future self feeling, where then when we reopen, I'm going to have no actual cash coming in because it's all going to be backed up. So I'm kind of leaning towards the stuff where I can just directly profit, but not be really taking from my future income. So I thought that was a really cool idea that he had on, you know, kind of becoming a partner with me because he wants to see me be successful.
Yeah, I think, first of all, from a finance perspective, you know, as a business consultant, time value of money, you would always rather have money today than in the future.
Okay.
It's just a best practice. And then the other thing I'll say is that, especially in the fitness world, knowing you're in the fitness world, there's a lot of creativity of what you can be doing with your membership with virtual workouts. And in
Yeah,
fact,
we're doing a ton of that.
yeah, that's definitely one of the industries. And then the other comment, and again, I hope there's no landlords on the call that, are going to come to my house and break the 6-foot distance and kill me. But most landlords, if anything, they have the mortgage on their property and they have the potential to defer the payments on those mortgages to get through this. So I do look at that as being one of the expenses that's probably a fairly low-hanging fruit right now. So I don't think anybody's going to have their property foreclosed on if they miss a payment property right now.
Good to know.
But that's opinion, not fact. I do want to reiterate that. Other questions? Anyone else out there that we haven't heard from yet? And you could still type them in the chat. We're still paying attention to the chat.
You talked about that with mortgages. That's one of my biggies is not being able to pay my mortgage payments on time. But my mortgage is with a large company back east somewhere. And you talked about going to a local bank. Mm-hmm. And I do have accounts at US Bank, but will they be interested in my mortgage that's actually with somebody else?
I would certainly pursue that opportunity right now. I think this is a great question. I would definitely be talking to my lender, but I would also immediately be calling that bank and even though it is a big company, chances are they do have a program in place to maintain, because the last thing they want is to have a bunch of foreclosures right now, because that takes a lot of their staff time and that's their most expensive time. So they might have an immediate relief program. So I would reach out to them and see if they have something, if they already have a deferral program. Okay. A lot of mortgage companies are being very proactive with that. I will say I have 3 children in college right now and a wife in college. So I have a lot of student loans. I immediately got from these big companies, this is how you can defer your loan payments immediately. And I would think your mortgage company might even have a Q&A page on their website right now. So I would look into that, please.
I would echo Rick's comment there. I agree. I'm both a landlord and a tenant. The thing I've been trying to keep in mind when trying to call to get mortgages deferred is to have your loan information readily available. So you have all the information they're going to ask you for right on hand. And that if you're dealing with somebody on the East Coast, call them the minute they open, not an hour before they close, because you're likely to be on the phone for 1 to 2 hours. So you need to prepare for that so that you don't get an hour and a half into the process. You're going to get transferred multiple times. They're going to ask you for the same information multiple times. And you don't want to get almost through that process and then get cut off because the last person you have to talk to is now off for the day. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, great feedback. Thanks, Janice.
David had a comment, or Chris had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, I was just echoing what you were saying to her.
Oh,
that's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, did we answer your question well enough, or is...
I think I've got an avenue that I'm going to follow, and certainly thank you so much.
Yeah, and you can always reach back out to us if you have follow-up questions. And I do encourage people to get on that call next Wednesday. Kate, I don't know how was the call yesterday. Is there any more feedback you could share from that?
From Anna Williams.
Yeah.
There is a slew of things that the state is going to be voting on, but they are basically they were waiting to see what the feds were going to give the states, and then what their plan is to backfill what the federal government's not covering.
Right.
So it probably is a good idea for later on next week for me to have another call with Anna, so you guys can kind of hear what shakes out from that. I'm like all you guys, I'm very inundated with information. So, but their top priorities were small business and low wage workers are the number one priorities. And their special session is going to be on Monday and Tuesday. They have cash infusion, strategic flexible fund, and small business grants. Cash flow challenges is what they're looking at for small business. Corporate activity tax and timelines, they're looking at that. Expanded access to unemployment insurance. And they said the hardest hit program is, and so they're going to be looking at mortgage assistance.
Right.
So that's all coming down from the state level. And she had, Lorraine, you were on that call. What else did she say?
Oh gosh, there was so much on that call. And actually I have my notes.
I know those were my notes, but maybe you wrote
Yeah.
down.
Well, no, I mean, we don't have to redo the whole thing. So let's stop there on that call yet. I do want to add some editorial commentary here because this question was asked before the call started about the grants. I'm going to use my same SBDC grant line. A grant should only be for a nonprofit business or for something that benefits the whole community. So, I bring up that competition of funds. If people are just looking for what's out there, there's no way they're going to be able to service that. So, please, from a community perspective, I'll just, again, editorial position. I would much rather see a grant go to someone who can't pay their mortgage so they're not evicted or don't lose their home than for a business because they were temporarily hurt for a couple of months by, this downturn. We actually talked about that. Lorraine was on the first call. We talked about that a little bit. It's like, yes, I want you to think about the microeconomics of your business, but you do want to think about your community, and any resource you get might take away from a resource available to someone else that's in more need. The other question that wasn't brought up yet that was on the first call I want to bring up again is that people are asking about unemployment. I do expect part of what Kate was talking about and that Anna Williams talked about with the different programs to help people. The state is they're the ones who manage the unemployment program. So when you lay someone off, you as a business owner cannot speak to what benefits the state is going to give them. So if you hear things and when you make your decision, to lay someone off, you have to do what your business has to do, but you can't do that saying, well, the state's going to pay this percentage of your salary or that percentage of your salary. The state manages that process, and you need to let the state be the ones that do that and guide the decision on how unemployment's paid out. You need to guide your decisions on employment based on what you can do. I will say that if you do have the resources to maintain the workers and can get through a couple of months with this, that gets back to positioning your business for a quicker recovery. You don't have to retrain employees or potentially lose a great employee because they got laid off, and then when it comes time, they find something better than your job. You know, I've always tried to maintain my employees as long as possible. And I will say that even though it's not a short-term benefit, if you maintain those employees through this, there is definitely going to be tax credits on that. And, you know, obviously you get to deduct that from any profitability, but even beyond that, you might end up getting paid back that money next tax year of what you keep people on. So like right now, if you know, where I work, we're at a 75% reduction, and we're giving very generous PTO to our workers, paid time off. On that paid time off, we're going to get a refund on that paid time off. That part has already passed. We're not going to see it immediately, but we will get it back. Oh, will I scroll through my text screens again, my PowerPoint presentation? So I put my, someone asked about my contact. This is where you can contact me. I will say that I'm volunteering my time for this, but I can't volunteer my time. You know, I'm a small business as well. I can't volunteer everything for free. So I do suggest you contact the SBDC first and only come to me after you get your free services handled. And is there a particular slide? So Martin asked, is there a particular slide you want? Kate does have this presentation. And Kate, I don't mind you sharing this presentation with any member that wants it. It does have my notes in there, and you'll see that I go off notes sometimes when I talk. And then with the different loan options, sort of plan for a future is necessary. How should we be formulating these plans when no one knows what's going to happen in the next few months? I do want to address this question. So the answer is, you know, like any business planning process, you go into the process and you make your best forecast and you have that plan. And then next week, something different happens and you adjust that plan. If you've ever read the book Flawless Execution, it's like you create your plan, you execute your plan, or you brief your team, you execute your plan, then you debrief, you get back together and say, okay, this is what happened. Well, even if your team's yourself, you create that plan. I like to say, always get at least one outside mentor to help you out. Talk about what you're going to do. Go ahead and do it. See what happens. Talk about what happened, and then adjust your plan. It's just the best process out there. You know, I don't let what we don't know interrupt with what we do know. And I don't start planning for what I think's going to happen. So now's the time. If anybody has ever done a SWOT analysis, now's the time to do that SWOT analysis and really focus on opportunities and threats. Every time you make a decision, there's consequences to that decision. Think of what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen. And then make your best judgment and take action. River Rafter would be most excellent at this time. Okay, yeah, so Martin, is it okay if we get this presentation to you? Oh, what would be presented to the bank or lender? So just to follow up on that, so I'll pull that slide up right now. So your financing story, really, for banks to do quick underwriting, you want to have a clear, concise business plan. And Kate and I actually talked about this. We may do a follow-up if the demand's there for it, where I will show you how to put together a quick application package. You know, I have all these financial forecasting tools where, you know, basically if you give me your profit and loss statement, I can help you create a forecast to present to a lender in a very concise format. That's what I used to do for the Small Business Development Center. So again, I suggest you get with your Small Business Development Center and start creating these forecasts. If you don't want to work with the Small Business Development Center and try it on your own, there's a ton of great templates out there. the number one thing I'll say, and you know, I'm dealing with some former clients on the line, you know, it's like you want a one-page profit and loss statement. And I go back to, let me just go back a couple slides. You want it to have, this is what my sales are, this is what my cost of goods are, this is what my labor, advertising, production, occupancy, and then everything else is one line. Don't give them 3 pages to look at. Give them 1 page to look at so they can see what they do in their underwriting process. Is they look at margins, and what you want to do is make it stand out and make it look good. And that's where the Small Business Development Center can help you do that. I can help you do that. Some of the local bookkeepers in town, there's some great bookkeeping services. You know, the 2 that come to mind, and I don't know if they're Hood River Chamber members, there's NumberWorks, there's SCG services, where they can help you put this stuff together, especially if you're already working on that. But, you know, now's the time to go out and put those plans together. And then in the loan application, basically what I tell people is you want to have your tax return, you want to have your historic profit and loss statement where you kind of adjust it for the lender and show them what your operating profit and loss is when you basically you pull out depreciation and interest and show them how your business model is doing. And if you don't understand these terms, we can have a separate conversation about that. So we're getting to the time. Kate, I don't know, can we stay a little bit over, or is there a rush?
Yeah, that's fine. I have a call at 12:30, so we're fine if you want
Okay.
to go over. And then if you want, you and I can talk, Rick, about maybe we do something next week to get more in depth. If you want to do that, I'm happy to do that if that's what people would like us to do.
Yeah, so definitely reach out to Kate and let her know what you want. I did my best coming up with an outline based on, you know, what's an introductory with what information we have available right now. But, you know, if there's anything specifically that you think we missed that we should be touching upon for you, I could get together this weekend and come up with something, as long as you give me an idea of what you need. I will say my opinion is your next steps is create that financial forecast, create a simplified financial forecast, run it by a mentor. Before you bring it to a bank, I like to say you never get a second chance to make a first impression with your lender. So, you know, it's like, come up with that nice, this is my proposal to you. And then it helps. I mean, whatever's out there, the lender will look at that and say, oh, that's perfect. This is the best program I could do for you. You don't have to wait for this to come out. I can use this existing tool for you right now. That would be the best case scenario. And the only chance that's going to happen is if you put that package together and you're proactive with it.
Hey, Rick, did you see Lorraine's question? Can you go back to my OIB question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. Lorraine, I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, with OIB loans, do you still need to be declined by a bank before you can apply? So right now, that is the process, but most people are waiving that. And I will say that there's not a banker out there that right now that won't send you a quick letter. I'll introduce you to a couple bankers that will send you a quick letter just so you can get that application going. I will say that just get the application going. If that's something that you're considering, get that package together and ready, because everything you do for that loan package could easily be applied to the next program. And that's one other comment I want to make before I read the last, oh, that's just a thank you. So one other comment is, whenever you do a loan application, you can pretty much take that package in most cases and give it to the next lender, and they'll tell you if there's anything else you need. It saves a ton of time. Like a common one is a bank will say, you know, I need your personal financial statement, and they'll give you their bank template. Well, if you already gave, you know, a personal financial statement to Key Bank, and now you're applying at Columbia State Bank, just give them your Key Bank personal financial statement. They can fill in the boxes. don't create a new one. Well, I thank everybody for coming on board. Please stay in touch with Kate at your chamber. Thanks again to the Hood River Chamber for doing this. All of you that attended, thanks so much for being here and helping each other out. I just love that a lot of these comments are both verbally and through the comments, printed comments, are you helping each other out. So keep doing that, please.
Yeah, and I just want to say, yes, I can send this recording out. I will. And that, Rick, are you okay if I share this or not?
Yeah,
slideshow.
definitely. I apologize for anything I said that was politically incorrect.
Oh, you didn't say anything politically incorrect.
Okay.
That's what we need right now is honesty. You know what? That's absolutely what we need right now is good direction.
Yeah, I will say that I think very highly of the local resource partners and what they're attempting to do through this. I mean, it's just so hard. I mean, there's only so much and so many resources to go around. And it's really easy to do something that, you know, gets second guessed and made a mistake. And all they're doing, everybody's doing what they're doing with their best intentions in mind.
Okay, last chance.
Okay. Thanks. Right. Great point, Matt. Shop local whenever possible. Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
and I'll send you guys a link to our website with all of our information that's easy for you guys to find, and then keep looking out for some stuff that we're doing, and please let me know what you need from us.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Take great care, everyone.
Thanks,
good luck.
Rick.
Be resilient.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rick.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.